So I've had this tailgate storage lid from Hurricane Fab installed for a couple of years now, and I've been pretty happy with it. There was one minor gripe, well, maybe a little more than minor gripe, but the one thing that I never loved about it, and I'm not sure if this is going to come out on the video, but was the strength of the actual lid if you place any weight on it. You know, if you're going to stand on this tailgate, which, you know, I do to open up the tent up there, there's just a lot of deflection. I don't know if you can see that, but I was always worried, you know, when I'm standing up on this tailgate that I'm going to break the hinge or I'm going to break the latches. So I would tend to always stand out here, like on the outer edges that are supported by the body of the actual tailgate, rather than standing, you know, dead in the middle, which is, you know, the most comfortable place to stand if I'm trying to get up there and open up the tent. So everything else has been pretty satisfactory, but that's the one major thing I was not too happy with. I'm hoping that with this next installment that I'm going to get stuck into today, that goes away. Wish me luck. So I've just removed the Hurricane Fab lid and just unbolted it all, and taken out the main frame, I guess it is, from the new Delta tailgate lid, and just overlaid it on top of the hole that I already, you know, had cut out for the Hurricane Fab. And it looks like all of the bolt holes, they all still marry up to the existing holes that are in the tailgate, the same ones the Hurricane Fab were using. I got to figure out, these two don't align to anything. I got to figure out if that's something I cut out or if that's some additional part in the box. But the first thing I noticed is the amount of sheet metal that I'm gonna still have to cut out, because the overall opening on the Delta tailgate is bigger than it is on the Hurricane Fab, which that was probably my second gripe on the Hurricane Fab, is when you have the lid open, there is a little bit of maneuvering around to get things in and out, because the opening is not huge. It's not really much of a problem, but there are things that get stuck in the back there that you need to finagle to get in and out. So I wasn't expecting that, but that's a nice little surprise. So keep moving. So I just opened up all of the hardware packages, and there's 2 bags in there. So a bunch of brackets, Delta nameplate, not sure where that goes yet, but I see there's a strut. I'm pretty happy about that. That was another thing on the Hurricane Fab, is if you're on any kind of slope, and because it wouldn't, when you open it up, it wouldn't lean back far enough to just stay there unless you're perfectly flat. Perfectly flat, it would stay there, but it would, any kind of slope, and it would be landing on your hand. So a strut means that problem goes away as well. I'm remembering all these other little things that I didn't love as I'm looking at the equipment. And then there's another bag of all sorts of hardware, tape, latches, more brackets. So find out where all this stuff goes. So I've just snugged down with a three bolts, you know, here, and over here, the new frame onto the tailgate, just to get it in place. And if I didn't already have a, you know, I forget the name of it now, the Hurricane Fab one, then this would have all been still solid. But since that hole, like I mentioned, is smaller, I still need to cut out some more material. So I'm going to take a magic marker and trace out the whole outline here around to give us a guide as to where to cut. I'm hoping that since I've already done a lot of the cutting, that it's a little bit easier to cut this time, but we will see. May not make a difference. I am going to have to repaint all my cut edges. I'm not too thrilled about that since I did that before, but small price to pay. Okay, good. So I just took my time on the measuring step here, because it's a step you don't want to get wrong. You can only cut once if you cut too much. So after I traced out the Delta frame, the next step was to then measure in 1/4 inch, 6 mil, and put a few marks, and then using, you know, straight edge. Actually, I ended up using a big old piece of flat stock, and made another trace with straight lines, right, without the bends in them. That's about 1/4 inch inset from the actual lid. That's so that when it's installed, the lid has something to rest on, I believe. So anyway, measured that a couple times, drew the lines out, and then put my painter's tape over the final line that I'm going to cut. And I just did a last measurement. It needs to be 10 1/8 inch front to back, and 48.5 inches left to right, and it's bang on. So next step is to get out the cutoff wheel and trim this out. So I got my hole all cut out. Everything's measured about 10 times at this point, so I'm pretty confident that I cut the hole the right size. Then there are these aluminum channel pieces that you test fit. You know, there's the 2 short ends that go on this side, and then there's a long one that goes across the back, and then 2 medium length ones that go across the front here. They're sitting in the garage right now. But I test fit all of those once I was confident that they all fitted nicely and they butted up at the corners. They all came pre-cut to size. Then I just taped up the tailgate where I made the cuts, gave it a coat of primer. I'm waiting for that to dry now, and then we'll get into the assembly. So I let the painted cut edges dry and harden up overnight. This morning, you know, I came back, took these 5 pieces of this aluminum C-channel, popped it all into place. Now, did another measurement, so I think the 11th time I'm measuring this now. All looks good. Now, the next step is to take this felt tape and line all of these aluminum channels, so that it has a nice soft landing for the lid. So now that I've lined all of the C channels with the felt, give it a nice soft landing for the lid once it's installed, I've now moved on to assembling the hardware. So starting out by putting on this bracket that the strut will attach to, and I'm about to now put on the hinge. It's just 7 bolts running along the back edge of the lid. So let's get to it. So now that I got the hinge bolted to the lid, I put that aside. I now have the frame. I've laid it out, aligned all of the holes, and I'm going to start putting in some, I think 7 of these bolts along the front here, just loosely, finger tight for the moment, and then we'll move on to the next step. So I've now got the lid loosely attached, all of the hardware that goes through here between the hinge on the back side, through the frame that goes around here, and then on the underside there's a support brace that runs the full length of this. So I've got all of the hardware in there. It's all hand tightened at this point, because there's another brace step that comes I haven't got to yet. I've also, on the front here, there's a bracket that attaches the bolts that go through this latch. You replace those with longer bolts, and there's a bracket that attaches to the inside of those, and then to these 2 here. So it gives support to the leading edge here. So great improvement over the Hurricane that I had, because already I can tell there's a lot more rigidity right here. Next step, I believe, is to work on the rest of the bracing on the backside. So that's where we're going next. So I've now also installed the rear brace. So there's 2 Z-shaped brackets that form together, and they bolt up under the center of this back support. and they're held together by a coupling nut, so they become very rigid. I haven't pushed on it yet, but I can tell this thing's not going to be going anywhere. Next step is to tighten up all the frame bolts. I found that when I was trying to tighten up all of the back frame bolts and align the front to be nice and, you know, have a nice gap all the way along, this was making it difficult because it was pushing in on, sorry, this meaning the strut was pushing in on the back. So I removed it and allowed me to get a nice even flush line. So I'm almost done. The lid is all tightened up all the way along here. We've got braces in front and rear. You know, it is feeling quite sturdy now. Last step, I think, is to put the 2 latches in. I reattached the gas strut over here. I found it was easier to remove this side of the gas strut while I was aligning the lid, make sure I have a nice even reveal all the way along here. As I'm tightening them up, you start in the center and work your way out. And then it was just very simple, just, you know, pop that back in when I was done with that. Now ready to get these latches on, which looks pretty straightforward to me. All right, this goes this way, like this. Got a bracket on the bottom side and 1 bolt. Like so. And we'll do the other side. Okay, so final part. It's all done, latches are in. I adjusted these, basically just ran them all the way down, and we're good to go. I closes, latches easily. It is significantly more rigid. Actually, it's very rigid. The only thing that's moving is the whole tailgate and the whole truck itself now. So this feels much better than the Hurricane Fab one that I had in here. Oh, I will note, this is an early version of this. I believe there's like 2 carpet kits. There's like one that'll go on the outside, which I probably will put on here once it's available. You know, it'll match the cabinetry, and you know, I know that I'm going to be standing all over this and it'll get scratched up pretty quickly, since I use it to get into the tent. So there's a carpet kit coming for that, I believe. And then on the inside, I still have the foam that came with the Hurricane Fab one. I believe there's also going to be a carpet kit for this, which I think would be good because the foam here is like I don't know, it looks like 3/8 inch thick, which takes away from the space in here. A carpet option would be better. I'm not looking forward to trying to remove this since it's all stuck down like with very strong adhesive, but I probably will. Overall, very, very happy with this. I'm actually about to head down to Moab in an hour or so and really test this thing out. I'm going to fill it full of gear. I'm going to be using it all weekend, but there it is, Delta Tailgate. Very nice, as usual, from these guys.